All right, welcome to the NFL Outdated Cover 2 series. This episode is on the Philadelphia Eagles. I am joined by JD from the Distinctive Drip Network. How's it going?
Hey, man, it's a mouthful. I'm doing good, man. How about you?
I'm doing well, doing well. I had to practice that for a little bit.
It is a tongue twister, man. I promise. It took a long time for me to get it. That's why we just go by Drippy most of the time.
Very good, very good. Well, the Eagles, it's been an interesting season. I mean, you kind of look at it, I don't know from the outside, like how much, expectations, were there.
Right.
You look at it. I mean, I'm a huge Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith. I like that going forward.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about, what you're seeing, obviously, doing the podcast, and then from fans and just the noise, around Jalen Hurts. I mean, because he can be a solid quarterback, right?
Yeah, but he's also very polarizing at the same time.
Yeah.
We have the fan base is kind of split. I consider myself a Steelers fan, Steelers, Eagles fan. So I'm kind of in the middle about pretty much everything, but I'm always getting kind of in trouble because I do see the more optimistic side of everything.
Mhm.
I'm also a big college guy, so I watched Jalen Hurts all 3 or 4 years that he was at in college, from his Alabama years to Oklahoma. And then I've even followed him up to college, and I've been if you look at him as a freshman in Alabama winning the national championship, and you watch him all the way up to now as a quarterback for the Eagles, you will see a big transition in his game. He's changed a lot. He's I know a lot of people still kind of mess with him, like as far as passing and reading defenses and things of that nature. To be completely honest, they're not that wrong about some of the things they say about him. But I think what he does have that you can't teach is leadership and the ability to win. And he does it at a very high level. The way he's able to lead his guys, like those guys will run through a wall for Jalen Hurts. And you can't teach that.
It's so, interesting. I don't know if it's just because it's Philadelphia or, because, a lot of these young quarterbacks, they get time. I mean, he really hasn't had, all that, much time. And
Right.
he had some really amazing spurts toward the end of last year,
Right.
But obviously there has to be, a growth curve. I mean, even, you're thinking of like, Peyton Manning, some of these, all-time great quarterbacks had that growth curve,
Right.
Is it just because it's Philadelphia is why he's so polarizing? Or
yeah, I think historically in Philly, they've had kind of a love-hate relationship with the quarterback, especially the black quarterback. If you go all the way back to Donovan McNabb,
Randall Cunningham,
too, like he was one of the first of his type, and he was one of the first of his type of game. But then you fast forward, you got Donovan, then you fast forward a little bit more, you get Michael Vick, and then now we're in the Jalen Hurts era, and there are some things the guy can do with the ball that anybody else will be sacked behind the line. But the fact that a kid will squat 600 something pounds. Does he have the strongest arm? No. But can he put the ball out there on a rope? Yes, he can. It's just in the right positions. I don't think he can throw the ball 30 to 40 times a game and then be successful. That's just not the type of game that he's going to play. Even at Oklahoma, they weighed heavily on the run game, and that's why they were successful. All the games, if you look at with the Eagles, that they've been super successful. The run game has been premier, and then the pass game is like kind of almost like a diversion, almost like a shock factor.
And my son, my 11-year-old son is like huge into NFL, and he was just kind of looking at some of the top rushers now in the NFC, and Jalen Hurts is actually I believe in the top 10. He's up there.
Yeah,
he's the first quarterback, and so you look at everything that he can do. I mean that's huge when you have that. I mean, a lot of people don't want that necessarily as their main thing for quarterback. You see that with the criticism of Lamar, Jackson and all of that. But I mean that is that's a huge element though that the defense has to respect though, right?
Yeah, because it puts a lot of pressure on the defense. Because if you're watching it from a defensive perspective, the linebackers now have to play spy. You can't just rush the quarterback. You can't just do those things. You have to think twice. With the run pass option, it causes a lot of issues. And to prepare for somebody like Jalen Hurts, and sometimes now Gardner Minshew, depending on how they decide to use him for the rest of the year, it could be a Swiss Army knife. A lot of people are looking at this as a bad thing that Gardner Minshew is getting to play a little bit. But if you really want to just win the championship, we're not really so much, if you're a real Eagles fan, you're not really so much worried about how you win. It's just about winning. So Jalen Hurts can get it done. and he's going to get it done. But everybody said it for a long time that, Lamar Jackson, playing Lamar Jackson the way they played him, it wouldn't work. Right now, they're in a little bit of a slump. But at the same time, he's also the MVP, and they've also had, deep kind of some runs in the postseason. So I think everybody's kind of just realizing that the NFL's changed a little bit.
Well, and what hurts Lamar Jackson is, all the injuries at running back. I mean, if he had, his running back, if he had that, I mean, that would be huge.
One of his 3 running backs. Like, let's give him give him 2. Yeah. He lost everybody before the season started.
And looking at Minshew, like, is there a little bit of a controversy now? I mean, he did, lead them to the win, or what is that like, within Eagles, I don't know, Twitterdom or
yeah. So like, it's weird because like I do write for the Eagles. So like I get like a healthy dose of Twitter Eagle stuff, and I get a healthy dose of like actual fans who like are really like know the game. The weird thing about the Eagles fan base is they're really a lot smarter than a lot of fan bases. They know a lot about football. So when you get down to the X's and O's with a lot of people, my wife is even a diehard Eagles fan, and she knows her ball. So having those conversations with her about Minshew, and she kind of hearing her perspective, Gardner Minshew. I'm sorry. Oh, that was weird. Yeah. Gardner Minshew is one of those type of guys where he's a fan favorite. He comes in. He's kind of like Ryan Fitzpatrick. He comes in. He energizes the team. Everybody's happy to see him. He's got a lot of energy. He can put the ball sometimes on the string, but he's very inconsistent. He could go and throw. He could go, 20 for 23, or he can go 10 for 23. It's just, you really don't all the time. You don't really all the time know what you're getting from him. So, that's a bit of a change, so forth. But Minshew magic is real.
Yeah,
he can raise the temperature of the room. He can make your team believe, and he can sell some tickets. I just don't think the guy that's the Wrangler commercial Gene guy is your franchise quarterback. So
now I saw a meme on I don't know about on Twitter about Gardner Minshew is who Baker Mayfield hopes to be. Yeah,
I mean, hey, listen,
yeah, it was funny, but
it was funny. Listen, I've never been a big Baker Mayfield fan. I'll be the first to admit it. I've kind of always kind of questioned. I think he's a good novelty.
Yeah.
He's a great novelty. He's a big personality. Can he win games? Yeah, he can win some games for you. Well, he can't. He can not lose you some games. How about that? He's a great game manager. But he's not a Kyler Murray. He's not a Kyler Murray.
He's definitely not. And you look at him, and even back to his days at Oklahoma, he was you could rattle him, on the sideline, his antics, and you going back to Jalen Hurts. I mean, he seems to just kind of be even keel. Like, you can't rattle him, right?
The first game I saw him actually show emotion was the game against New York. He was visibly banged up. He had a rough go at it, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. He threw 3 interceptions. By the end of that game, he throws 2 of his best balls on the string to Jalen Reagar, and he drops both of them in the end zone. And after that point in the game, Jalen throws the last one, and Jalen Reagar misses it. The look and that's the picture that everyone's seen all over the internet with Mailata with his hand on his back and Jalen's bent down is, we get to see this guy's humanity. We really do. We get to see his humanity, and we get to see how rough and tough that might actually be on a quarterback. And he's not a big person for a bunch of words and stuff, but he does believe in himself, and he believes in his team, and that's what I say that's what you can't teach. You can manufacture a lot. You can work on his mechanics. You can work on his arm strength. You can work on a lot of the stuff that people say about him, but you cannot take the fact that he has these guys willing to run through a wall and give everything they got week in and week out. And that's something they can't take from him or say he doesn't have his leadership qualities.
Is there just like within Philadelphia, I mean, famously booing Santa and all this stuff, is there just like not that patience to kind of, let him develop? Or
in my honest opinion, I think it's just they had a couple, like they thought they had their franchise quarterback when they had Carson Wentz.
Yeah. That was a mess.
And it was a mess. And then it's like there's still a lot of fans who still think that they made the wrong decision by drafting Jalen Hurts, which at the end of the day, now looking back on it, hindsight being 2020, it's not that bad of an idea because Carson was hurt for a majority. He'd only played one playoff game his entire time he'd been there. He'd been hurt a majority of years. Even the last playoff game, he actually got knocked out of that game. So, he hadn't played any games. He has no playoff wins. The only playoff games he's been a part of and won were games he, was a clipboard warrior. And Nick Foles goes on and wins the championship. He gets the statue out front of the stadium. And the guy
big contract with the Bears. So
gets the big contract, and then he gets the most iconic name in Philly history. We're not gonna say it, but BDN is his nickname in Philly. I
got it. Yeah, okay. I got you. Yeah,
he's highly touted in Philadelphia. People love him. And it was a worse recipe for Carson Wentz. It went very bad, and people still harvest a lot of resentment. And because of that, it's hard for them to let go. Even if Jalen Hurts goes out and they say he can't throw, and he goes out and throws 380 yards like a game 3 or 4. It's just like it won't be enough for a while. He's got to, if he makes it to I will say this, if he makes it to the playoffs with this current team the way they are, which they're not far out of, they're about 3 games. Well, they're a game and a half out of the playoffs. So if they could win the next 3 out of 4, even if they lose the Cowboys at the end, they could still make it to the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the NFC, at least as it's called a lot of times, how, it comes down to the last, game or so, and it's, just a horrible record. But, coaching wise, I mean, what are you seeing from Sirianni? I mean, he made that just blunder. Why wasn't he wear that T-shirt? Was it the beat Dallas T-shirt or something? And I mean, is he going to make it as a head coach? Or
he showed from my perspective, he showed that he's got some gall and he's got some stones, and he's a motivator. To be honest, I'm a Clemson fan. He reminds me a lot of Dabo. Actually, he puts me in the mind of a Dabo. He can put people in place. He kind of can galvanize a team. He has like these cool little quirky little sayings, and it gets the team riled up. He's a young guy, so he's still hip to what's going on in the locker room. He's not, and the thing about it is he's young enough to still be able to change. And a lot of the older coaches, they can't, get behind the changes. Even when in the beginning of the year, they said run the ball more, and he wasn't running. And he all of a sudden he kicked it into high gear, started running Jordan Howard, started running Boston Scott, and they started winning. So he showed me some things this year that I didn't know he had in his bag. And if I'm a pseudo Eagles fan, I'm happy about what I've seen from Sirianni. I need to see a little more, but I'm happy with what I've seen so far.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of got an often interesting start with his kind of rambling press conference and whatnot. But that's good to hear that he's really kind of has the backing of the locker room, because I'm a Bears fan, and presumably, hopefully, they will be moving on from Nagy at the end, and I just hope that they don't go with one of these retreads. I mean, being a Bears fan, it was a bad thing for me when I saw Mike McCarthy was fired from the Packers. Because he's just one of those old school guys, and I'm sure Philly fans were happy when the Cowboys hired him, because he is just doesn't have his finger on the pulse of just kind of new things, and so Sirianni, Philadelphia's going to kind of let him develop as a coach. Then
I would assume so, because he was basically, I honestly believe that everybody wanted the coach that coaches the Colts, that offensive coordinator that was over there. I think everybody kind of really wanted him when they got rid of Doug Peterson, but Doug Peterson had been fired, and then he goes over, it takes Carson Wentz with him over to the Colts, and it's kind of been a match made in heaven outside of the injury so far. They just, they're leaning on Jonathan Taylor a lot. So I guess with the Eagles, I think they will give him time. And it was rough, but now we're seeing some guys just in front of that microphone, they just get nervous, and he rambles. He happens to be a rambler. This is one of my favorite sayings. My grandma used to say it to me when I was young. She said, a lot of people can't tell you that there's a toilet, but they know how to use one.
Yeah.
It's the normal saying is that person may not be able to read that says toilet, but they still know how to use one. But she used to say people can't taught. My brother had a speech impediment growing up, so he couldn't speak real well. And she says he got more common sense than all y'all. And that's what she used to tell us.
Yeah, that makes sense because it's one thing to be in front of your guys in the locker room, kind of telling them what to do, and it's another thing to be kind of answering questions, and trying to also I can't even imagine well, even the players, they're expected to kind of be robots, and
Right.
on to the next game, whatever. And I love it, when players kind of go off script. I'm a Bears fan, and when Rodgers kind of said he owns the Bears, and you can't argue that. And
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of the greatest of all time, and you have to respect that. I like that when players kind of do their own thing like that. And, the media sometimes likes it too, because they get to run with the stories.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And then to the caveat to that, the T-shirts started as to support the guys. They started in training camp.
Oh,
like
really?
He would wear different T-shirts for like these preseason workout press time of pressers. He would just show up with one of these T-shirts. And he'd wear one when he was out on the field. There'd be all these cool novelty T-shirts. Listen, and a lot of people who are in Philly hate it, but a lot of people in Philly love it because it's football. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be airy and light. It's not supposed to be life or death every game. Like if you're living your life or death after these games, every game, then you're not having very much fun. And these players shouldn't have to be that tight. Let these guys have fun. They're all young. I think the oldest receiver is 24 years old. It's weird.
Yeah, let's kind of get into that in the receivers. On all my fantasy teams, I was completely sold out on Devontae Smith. Seeing him in the preseason, just his route running. I really, you look at the NFL, and a big portion of that is trying to get open. Some of these receivers. I'm trying to think of the former Bear wide receiver that was Eagles for a long time. It'll come to my mind here, but a lot of it is getting open, and that's route running. And I really like him now. And obviously in the future, I have him in my dynasty league.
Nice.
And so talk
that's
about
a really good pickup.
And he was kind of under the radar. And so I like him. Talk about him and maybe some of the other wide receivers, Jalen Reagar and because he was supposed to be that, wasn't he?
Okay, so there's a really crazy situation. So Jalen Reagar was drafted way higher than he was supposed to be drafted. I mean, the kid got drafted. I mean, he came out of absolutely nowhere. Like, I don't understand how it happened. I don't know what they saw. So for the last about year or so, I've been going back and looking at all this stuff from TCU to see maybe I missed something. I do a lot of, pre-draft stuff. So I said, what, let me go take a look at it. Maybe it's something I missed. Maybe something how we saw that we just missed. And honestly, looking back at the tape at TCU, we did miss something. He's a great athlete. He has one of the highest vertical leaps I think I've ever seen on a short guy. So he's very, very skilled in that way. It's just here he's so ingrained in like the Twitter stuff. Like when he has a bad game, he goes to Twitter. He actually responds to the stuff. His dad's responding to stuff on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
You just can't be that way. And Devontae Smith is the actual opposite. The guy's a professional through and through. A Heisman. Like the fact that the dude's a Heisman and he carries himself like a Heisman. He comes to work. He's dressed like a professional constantly. 3-piece suits. He's just all about his business. His route tree is crazy. Like watching the way the kid runs routes. The only thing I would change with Devontae Smith is he just has to gain weight. The beginning of the year, if you watch the games, he was getting pushed off of his route and get pushed out of bounds on the outside. So they started moving him to the slot a lot. So even if he got pushed, he would still be within the field of play because once they stop pushing him, he can get away from you. It's just getting him there. But that's just going to come with him being like getting more physical, getting a little stronger, getting a little bigger, and then as well as them kind of getting some guys around him. The sleeper for that wide receiver group, and a lot of people won't talk about it, is Quez Watkins.
Yeah,
he's a sleeper in that wide receiver group. The kid is 4'3" speed at least. 4.3 speed. He can get up and go. He has really good hands. He's a sure catcher for the most part. He doesn't drop a whole lot. And you can use him a lot of places. They can use him on speed sweeps and stuff like that, reverses. He's a great athlete. I watched him in preseason. He scored a 90-yard screenplay. He's an absolute animal, and he also is a great blocker as well. So I'm actually I'm really big on Quez Watkins.
I'd say, yeah. I mean, you look at this. I mean, it really is it's a young wide receiver core, but it's really talented. I mean, yeah. I mean, you look at Quez Watkins. I mean, in a lot of my fantasy drafts, I mean, he was, they're high on him and as well. And that there is a lot of talent there. And I getting back to Devontae Smith. I saw there was a episode that he was mic'd up on, and the one where he's talking about how he was an exercise science major.
Yes.
And I love that. I mean, that's a cool side to see.
He's a consummate professional. Like, I mean, with every sense of the word, for him to be a rookie, he doesn't act like it. He doesn't prepare like a rookie. He's one of those Nick Saban robot machine guys. And he's just going to do what he's got to do every game to get better and better and better. And that's just what it boils down to. The guys, like, I mean, I can't say enough good things about him. And I'm a Clemson fan, and I hate Alabama.
Yeah. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And you look at some of the other, pass catchers, talk about, obviously Dallas Goedert and then also saying goodbye to Ertz.
Yeah. So Ertz, losing Ertz hurt a lot because he was the most senior guy in that locker room for the skill positions. So that hurt. You go from having a guy that, is also another professional, like loves the city, cried, like boo-hooed about leaving. He did not want to leave here. He wanted to retire an Eagle. He's a professional in every sense of the word. Him and Julie Ertz are always welcome back in Philadelphia. I don't think it's anybody I don't think there was a draw in the place. I'm not even a full-out Eagles fan. Yeah. And I was really upset with him leaving.
Yeah.
I think they could have done something to keep him because they really didn't gain a lot by trading him. So I didn't see. And then he goes off to Arizona first game and scores like 3 touchdowns or 2 touchdowns or something crazy. So that was a big loss. But Goddard, I think they did that in good faith. That Goddard's the guy now. We watched last game. He had 2 tutties, compliments of Minshew Mania. He shows up and shows out. He's also very, very athletic tight end. And so I think the future for Goddard is very bright. There's also another guy in that tight end room that he's a young rookie. He's going to have a very, very bright future. His name is Tyree Jackson. He is a super athlete, super athletic. He can get out on the edges and block. He can also catch the ball at a very high clip, and he can make moves. Like, he's not just a statue. He can get yak, and I think with those two and any type of 2 tight end set that you can come up with, they're going to be very, very potent for the years to come.
Well, and so like getting rid of Ertz, was that more kind of about contract?
I think it was a money related. And I mean, and that's how he's a big money guy. Like, everybody knows, like, he doesn't always make the best decisions as far as trading and acquisitions of new talent, but he definitely is a money guy. So he can kind of manage the salary cap better than a lot of people in this game.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the roster, and top to bottom. I mean, there really are some, great young players. I mean, even you're looking at running backs. I mean, talk a little bit about, Miles Sanders. I mean, does he really have kind of what it takes to kind of shoulder the load? Number one, I mean, he's been injured, and then, Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell. There's a lot of young talent there, isn't there?
Yeah, there's so much young talent. So there's a bunch of guys. So their running back room is nuts. It's just like you already had Miles Sanders, and then he goes down. So everybody's now thinking, how are they going to run the ball? And then he shows up and they bring in Jordan Howard. And the resurgence of Jordan Howard has been, for lack of a better word, it's been phenomenal. He's come in and given them thunder and lightning. And then you add in Kenneth Gainwell, who can catch the ball out of the backfield. You can put him in the slot. He's a Swiss Army knife, and he can also run the ball a little bit if you give it to him. And he played at Memphis, so you know how those Memphis running backs have been doing the last couple of years with Gibson and those guys. So he played in the same. He played in the same backfield with those guys. And then last, but the 2 guys I want to talk about next are, Boston Scott is one of them. Boston Scott, even though he's a small guy, he's another Philly guy. Like, he's going to always be a Philly fan favorite. He's the little guy. He's coming in. He'll run through anybody. He does not care. He gives his body up for the team. He does have some issues with ball security, which has kind of been his thing. Him and Miles Sanders have had ball security issues kind of throughout the year. Even Jordan Howard sometimes. It's just trying to get those extra yards. Listen, that's a great running back room. That's a great problem to have. Yeah, it's a great problem to have. And if they keep running the ball like they're doing, hopefully they can do running back by committee, even with Miles Sanders back, and can kind of take a little bit of that load off of Jalen Hurts to have to carry the ball as many times.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at, I mean, Miles Sanders, I mean, definitely talented, but Kenneth Gainwell, he really adds a lot. I mean, that's huge. And Boston Scott's filled in, had great games. And I mean, do you see, like, so Miles Sanders probably won't ever be that bell cow back then, or
he could be. It's just his best ability is his availability. So he hasn't been able to be healthy an entire season since he's been there. I don't think sorry. And it's not so much about like him playing, but he's had a lot of issues with even since he was at Penn State. He played behind Saquon Barkley, so a lot of people didn't really even get to see him because he played behind Barkley, and that's one of the best running backs in the league when he's healthy as well. So you kind of got to look at it from that perspective, like, hey, how good can Miles Sanders really be? So everybody's always kind of like guessing how good he can be. We watched them the other day, like, assault these guys through the run game. So it's can he stay healthy? But then he gets hurt in that game as well. So it's just, I don't know. He throws my mind off a little bit.
Is his running style just kind of more like punishing, like as opposed to kind of like quick hitting the hole and everything, or?
No, he kind of gives me like Le'Veon Bell, like early Le'Veon Bell. Like he kind of dances a little bit. He tiptoes around the hole. He can hit the hole and he can burst. So he has really good speed. He can leave you if he gets a good step on you, you take the wrong angle, he will tell you good night. The only problem is it's like you got Kenneth Gainwell, now you got Jordan Howard. So like if he gets banged up, you're only really, like I said, his availability is going to end up probably hurting him because those guys can really step up and really run the ball at a very high clip. And with thunder and lightning, there's going to be some type of storm. And you got Kenny Gainwell, he can catch the ball in the backfield. You can put him on wheel routes. He can get 30, 40 yards on the catch because he has hands that are unmatched for like most running backs. And Jordan Howard is hitting holes like he's 25 again. He's like 22. Like he's hitting holes hard. So yeah, it's a great problem to have.
Well, yeah, and speaking of those holes, I mean, you have like a solid line, right? Landon Dickerson. I mean, there have been some injuries though, right?
Yeah, so it's kind of been a little bit of a revolving door. I said it on Twitter and I got like crucified for it. But when you really look at the numbers and you look at the way that they've had to kind of shift the offensive line, there's been about 15 different combinations for offensive linemen for the Philadelphia Eagles since 2019, since the last season technically. So they've had a lot of movement parts. They've had some continuity as well, and they have a great offensive line coach who's always getting the next guy ready. But it's just there's been no real continuity, and they have the Iron Man, Jason Kelce. He's been kind of the strong man for the entire offense. He's kind of been the one that's played through everything. Lane Johnson, he had to take some time off for mental health this year. Mailata is only been playing like American football for maybe 3 to 4 years at this point. So he's still learning things, but he's a force to be reckoned with. And with him and Jason Kelce and these guys and they're still missing Brandon Brooks. So they're missing a lot of guys that, normally you would be like, okay, you know what? Like, this team's not going to be good. They got too many moving parts, but because those guys are so athletic in the run game, it works. They can get out. They can pull. You'll see Mailata take out 2 or 3 guys in one run play if they run to his side. He's a Swiss Army knife. So I know a lot of people won't want to hear this because running the ball isn't sexy. Everybody wants to see. I use this analogy. Running the ball is like the girl that's always going to call you back. She's always going to call you back. Like, you don't have to worry about her. She's always going to call you back. She loves you to death. But passing is the sexy 5'10" girl, long legs, a model, basically Giselle. And she may not call you back. She may lose your number. She may forget your name. But if she will have you, you will damn sure have her. So,
Oh yeah.
So that is how I make my analogy with throwing. Everybody wants to throw the ball, but in this case, the way the Eagles' offensive line is set up, man, I would bruise everybody from now on. Like it'd be like a Derrick Henry type situation.
Well, it's interesting because you go back in Eagles history. I mean, they had, Shady,
Yep.
and I even remember that snowy game. I don't know, he just went off,
Oh yeah.
and you think of kind of Philadelphia, you think of, having that running game is, if there's going to be a deep playoff run, you want that. And yeah, obviously you are right. I mean, it is kind of the sexy thing now of like, we've got to have a, quarterback that can sling it, and we've got to, have wide receivers that are going to all over. And, but it really is. I mean, you have to have that running game, not only, to keep, defenses honest, but you have to have that. You have to have that as part of the whole package. I mean, you just need to, be balanced as an offense.
Oh yeah, like it's without question. Like those stats, those numbers, everybody want. And the problem with the Philadelphia Eagles is they have an owner and they have Laurie and Howie Roseman that want to be sexy. They want to sell jerseys. And with them, they're in a weird situation. So I'll use this analogy. So they watched their ex-girlfriend go and get super sexy with Andy Reid. Like, oh no, my God, Andy Reid looks like he's really, I mean, it's just sexy, like the most sexy woman you've ever met. And he goes over to Kansas City and they're throwing the ball all over the field.
Yeah.
They got a beautiful, beautiful hair, like leaning back. He takes the helmet off, his curls everywhere, and he's just tossing the ball all over. And it's just sexiness. And then Howie and Laurie look at their team and they're just bruising guys. And they're beating you, but it's not pretty. In their mind, they still got that girl that she's always going to call back. So they just have stuck with her.
It's so interesting. I mean, you talk about identity and, being a Bears fan, that's been Nagy's problem. There's just no identity. I mean, some teams have an identity. They're going to throw, they're going to run, and they stick with that. And it's a winning combination, and I mean, you have the Eagles had the Super Bowl. I mean, lightning in a bottle, obviously, with Nick Foles. But I mean, if you kind of you need to stick to, what's working, and not try to be someone else.
You would think that would be what they would do, but like St. Minds know better. Like we kind of know, that's why the game plan can change from week to week. No 2 weeks look the same. And it's as a I guess a Steelers fan that I am, I get frustrated because it's never the same thing. Speaking of that, my boys just lost, but they did come back, so I'm proud of them. But
I was wondering how that would go. I mean, that's another thing. You have some of these quarterbacks. Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, he's going to be done pretty soon, and there's going to be a change in the guard there. As far as defensively for the Eagles, I mean, how much longer is Fletcher Cox going to be there?
I would say Fletcher Cox is kind of like a mainstay. I don't actually know how old the guy is because he just doesn't seem to age. He's starting to show a little age now, but they've kind of shored up the defensive nose with Hargraves, and they still got Brandon Graham will be back next year, I'm sure, after his injury. He's been out, and then they got Sweat, and they got some guys on the team. But the really thing that they really paid a lot of attention more so too was grabbing Darius Slay a couple years ago from Detroit, and then they went and got Nelson from Pittsburgh. But to be honest, those were the main spots, but they've never really answered the question about linebacking and defensive ends. And we all know that when you're on the defense, those are signal callers, and they're normally your most athletic guys. Like I'm a Pittsburgh fan, so we've had TJ Watt, we've had some really good guys. We've had Harrison when in earlier years, Palomalu, those guys who are really good signal callers. Darius Slay has had a Pro Bowl year by far, really good, and probably second best in interceptions behind Trayvon Diggs, which I hate saying because I hate the Cowboys, but Trayvon Diggs, even I think he's the second best corner in the NFC East. It's just because Darius Slay doesn't get caught out of position a lot. Trayvon Diggs is all over the damn place. He's
Yep.
just a ball hawk. So he's just waiting for the ball. He can be, his eyes can be tricked. So people play on that a lot of times. But Darius Slay is very he's very disciplined, and he's kind of in the right place at the right time. He kind of puts me in the same mind that I would like a Honey Badger. He doesn't hit quite as hard as Honey Badger, but he definitely has a nose for the ball, and he's definitely where he's supposed to be at most of the time. So,
yeah. And, looking kind of at the draft needs, do you see them going? I mean, it's going to be interesting. They possibly have 2 top 10 picks.
Yeah, it's the way it's shaking out. Carson Wentz is still playing. He's still, they're still winning. And although I think they're trying to save Carson Wentz, they would love to say that first round pick. I think what's going to end up happening is you can't hide stupid. And Jonathan Taylor is just hands over heels better than most of the running backs without Derrick Henry around to stop him. He might be the best running back in the league. Saquon's been hurt for the last couple of years. So has Christian McCaffrey. Yeah. A lot of the big names that we're used to seeing are now about to start falling kind of victim to what he did at Wisconsin. Like, and you as a Midwest guy, what he did at Wisconsin. He's a problem. So honestly, those picks now look very good. So he might end up getting, they might get like I think 16 pick. And you can trade up. They have a lot of trade. They have a lot of trade. I think they have 6 picks within the first round this year.
Wow. Yeah.
So they have a lot of picks. I honestly believe, since I do this, I write for the draft needs of the Eagles. I really do believe that there's a couple guys defensively that could really help this team immediately. One would be the kid out of Georgia, Jordan Davis.
Yeah, he just won the Outland, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, he just won that award. The funny thing about you mentioned Fletcher Cox. With Fletcher Cox getting older, to put him beside Fletcher Cox, let him learn behind him a little bit, even play him within him. He's a little younger, so he could go maybe 2 or 3 downs and put him in Fletcher Cox for the big third down plays, and you need to get a stop, or automatic places they're gonna run on. And you can kind of phase Fletcher Cox out, even though he's still can operate at a very high level. If you had that type of guy, they haven't had a guy that I think has been that potent pass rushing since Reggie White.
Wow.
And I mean, that's just my, my thought process, but I know for a fact, if all things being considered with those type of picks, you could go with the kid from Alabama, 31. He's a linebacker. He can play a lot of spur. You can put him all over the field. He's a Swiss Army knife. You also got Thibodeau. You cannot forget about him out of Oregon. He would be a great defensive end. He would be automatically. He could easily be next year's Michael Parsons. You can throw him anywhere. He can play linebacker. He can play defensive end. You can sometimes you can put him at nose depending on who's there. He's just a Swiss Army knife, and you can put him damn near anywhere. And last but not least, I think for Stingley Jr., they could really benefit from Stingley Jr. as well. And there's a kid out of South Carolina. He's very similar to JC Horn from last year. I can't think of his name. I can't think of his last name right off the top of my head, but he would also be a very good piece to put in there. Once we do more of our draft, I don't have all the names remembered, but I got a lot of names in here.
Yeah, that's pretty good so far. So you look at it and do you think the fans will be, pushing, not that it's going to happen, but pushing to do a quarterback?
There's 2 ways that they don't go for a quarterback. And one is if they make it to the playoffs. If they make it to the playoffs, they're sitting at, I think, at 6 and 7 right now. If they win the next 3 out of 4, they puts them at 9 and 8 or whatever for the year. Even if they lose the last one to the Cowboys, they put them at 9 and 8. They probably get into the playoffs, and then they have a chance to get a wild card spot and possibly win a game or 2. That would change the whole trajectory of this season for the Eagles, because it answers a lot of those questions. Like, can Jalen Hurts be the guy? Yeah. Is he a winner? Because it's really hard to stop. The only guy I've ever seen win a first round playoff game and then get canned is Tim Tebow. Like, the only guy. So I don't think Jalen Hurts has Tim Tebow vibes.
Or Mitch Trubisky either. I think.
He did beat. He did beat somebody. But I think that was a fluke.
Yeah.
Then they beat who did they beat?
I don't even remember now. That whole Mitch Trubisky area is I tried to forget it.
That you could have had Deshaun Watson, but only problem with Deshaun is he would have been around damn massage therapists, and that would have been a problem.
Definitely. That's going to be an interesting, piece as well. I mean, there's so many teams that were in on him, and will they still be in on him? I mean, that's just going to be, I mean, could he possibly even end up in Philly? I mean, would that even, the market even, I mean, work?
Would they allow it? I mean, the market would probably allow it as far as money goes. They have a lot of money, a lot of salary cap space, which I think was a reason to get rid of Hurts, to clear up some cap space to go after a big name in the offseason. It's just that the names are going to be limited because, of course, the fan base is really tough. Sometimes to deal with. You got to also deal with the fact of the matter it's cold. A lot of these older quarterbacks, they don't want to come to cold weather. Like Aaron Rodgers has been playing in Green Bay for the last, 10 years or so. Like he may be looking for some California weather. He might want to go home. He's married to a movie star, about to marry a movie star. He might more than likely wants to take her out there. Russell Wilson is in Seattle. He probably wants to go away from snow, away from rain, probably take his wife. I mean, if anything, I've been seeing reports he may want to go back to Atlanta and take Sierra back to where she's from. So those are two big names. Deshaun Watson is a weird situation because of the simple fact that he does have some legal things looming. Could it get cleaned up between now and the offseason? Of course. By all means, he could, they could work something out, take a settlement or whatever. He's already missed 1 year. If this can go on, I don't know how long the trial would last, but he could potentially miss a whole nother year and then still be sanctioned by the NFL because he hasn't served anything. He hasn't served any suspension. So it can get real hairy with Deshaun Watson. Like it's not looking, it's a weird situation, man.
It is, and he seemed to do well on the turf, of Houston, and you just think of the quarterbacks that, and just like his game, he just seemed to kind of, do well. He's really shifty, and so, it's interesting that'll be an interesting situation. I mean, it'd almost be similar. I mean, not entirely, but with Michael Vick missing time and coming back, and I told you kind of offline that I had a chance to interview Julian Vandervelde,
right?
And he was there that whole changeover with Chip Kelly and with Michael Vick, and that's just interesting. You kind of think about a whole a roster changeover or whatever. And I had never, known about this, but when you talk about the line, it's different blocking for a running quarterback as opposed to a pocket quarterback. And, obviously right now, presumably the line is kind of all based on a running quarterback with Jalen Hurts, right?
Right. So, well, technically it was built for Carson Wentz. They haven't really retooled yet. So technically they're built for a runner or for a thrower. It just depends. That's why Minshew had a lot of success last week, is because it's quick throws to, Dallas Goedert. It's quick throws to, Devontae Smith. It could be anybody else. But honestly, if I'm being honest, Jalen Hurts can be good here, and Deshaun Watson could be great here. It's just the simple fact of the matter is you would be taking a guy can put the ball on the string. I mean, the guy's been doing it since he's been in high school. He set every record in Georgia until that was broken by Trevor Lawrence, and then he goes to Clemson, set every record, and then they were broken by Trevor Lawrence again. So it's just it's the guy's he's a gamer. I hope he can deal with the off the field stuff. Like I've been very vocal about it. Like honestly, if he did this shit, he should fry. If he didn't do it, let the guy play. But we're not gonna know until we know.
It's tough. I mean, it's you want to believe it and everything, and but you want to give someone the benefit of the doubt until they go through the trial and everything, and that's tough. When you look at just the Eagle makeup. I mean, they are based on. I mean, they want to be based on offense, right?
I would say so, and they haven't really done a whole lot to shore up the defense. So that makes me kind of believe that like they're wanting to be more box office than they want to be successful. it kind of sucks because you're in a blue collar town like Philly.
Mm-hmm.
People work really hard. They're hard workers and they love and they're very passionate about their team.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, the ownership wants to be Hollywood, and he's just in a wrong area for that shit. Like you can't do that here. Like it's not the place. Like it's not sexy to play in Philly. If you look at the guys that they've had, they're not the sexy throw it 150 times, air it out.
Yeah.
They're just not that team, and that's the messed up part about it is he wants it to be that team so bad he's willing to damn near tank the whole thing to try to make it that way.
It's so interesting that how things change, for players, for teams once they win the Super Bowl. And you wonder if it was almost like you don't want to say winning Super Bowl is a curse, but like then you kind of like, oh well, we can do this and we can do this every year, and it's not that easy. I mean, you look at the Cowboys,
24 years or something, 26 years.
Yeah, and you listen to Stephen A. and he likes to rag on them and whatnot, and it's not that easy, and being a Bears fan, I came into this season not expecting wins. I just wanted to see progress, and now looking at Justin Fields and having that game against your Steelers, on Monday night. I mean, it wasn't about that week. It wasn't about all of those stupid penalties and whatnot.
Right.
The national narrative was, look at Justin Fields, what he can be. He showed what he can be. And I don't know if the expectations are lower as Bears fans because of how bad our quarterbacks have been. When we see something really good, we're like, yes, I'm going to, like, as a fan, I'm like, I can see that. I'm going to go with that, and we haven't, won a Super Bowl in so long, and only the one, whereas the Eagles, oh, well, we won it, this way, and well, we can do it again. Well, it's not that easy though.
No, because you have difference of regimes. The regime has changed since then. Most of the guys that were on that team are no longer on that damn team. So
like, and it was a lot of luck too, right?
It's like everything went right. The Bears missed all those kicks that year.
Yes, the double going. Yes.
So I mean, it was a lot of things that had to happen for the Eagles to get there. So a perfect storm for that. You win with your backup quarterback. You run the Philly special. It's like one of the most iconic plays in recent history in a Super Bowl. So that happens. You have the iconic speeches by like Jason Kelsey with the damn Mummers outfit. I mean, it was everything about that season was showing you that like it may not happen again for some time, but you have fans that legitimately want it so badly, and they're not willing to take anything else because they've tasted it a little bit. And I'm a Steelers fan. I told you, like, that's my number one team. We got 6 rings, and we're watching the decline of our quarterback. Mm-hmm. And you're not hearing people, threaten Ben Roethlisberger. Oh, get him out of here! Like, they're being very patient in his decline as well. Yeah. We're patient in his development, and we're going to be patient in his decline. It's time for him to go, though. Yeah. But we need to let him, bow out gracefully. He's given us, I think, 16 years or some crazy shit like that.
Yeah.
It's time for him to go. But the Eagles fans, for whatever reason, they will not they will not give nobody the time to develop. They want to win now. They look at everything as being, I'm a Sixers fan too. So it's the same way. Yeah. The same thing with the Sixers. Like, they want to win now. Development is not their strong suit. Patience is not their strong suit. So, it sucks, man. It sucks sometimes.
Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, when you look at like what sucks for one franchise or one city is different for another.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at, and I have friends that are big Vikings fans, and they would love to be in the Super Bowl. They would love this, and have, and it's just different. And it's so interesting, kind of what you have grown accustomed to, and then just kind of assume we can just do that. Well, if it was easy, then anybody could play quarterback. Anybody could, run a team. And I don't know, being a Steelers fan, my dream scenario for the next Bears coach, I mean, it's probably not going to happen, but it seemed like Tomlin was getting a little irritated. My dream scenario would be he'd leave the Steelers and come to the Bears.
Listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. Mm-hmm. I thought for a while there he was a goner. I think he's kind of researched. He's never had a losing season in Pittsburgh. So
yeah,
He's only be there as long as he wants to be. I don't think nobody's pushing him out of town.
Oh no.
There's a cool coach around your area right now that I think is a really good coach if they give him time. Dan Campbell. I think Dan Campbell is a guy. He's a player's coach, and I think we're seeing that a lot more. That players coaches are having a lot of success, like the Cliff Kingsburys of the world, the Andy Reeds of the world. These guys are players coaches, and dude, like sometimes the buy-in is worth way more than what you can teach them on the field.
Yeah. And you want that stability. Like, I guess where I was going to go with the Tomlin thing. I mean, you have that stability, within, the organization, and with the Eagles, and maybe that's tough because, you had the changeover from Peterson and now you have Sirianni. So it's kind of like, it's really tough to, you don't have a really strong voice to be like, no, this is our guy. And I'm sure he probably is, but you just don't have that, and the Bears haven't had that, for a long time either. So
it's like unquestioned leadership. Like it's like, okay, Tomlin comes in and says, Ben's our guy. We all know Ben's old as shit, but Tomlin said he's the guy. So he's the guy. And we don't trust Mason Rudolph. And there was we got, I guess Josh Dobbs and damn near Haskins. Like we got all these random dudes that like, they can't take the reins. So like Ben just plays without, out repercussion, how good or how bad he plays. So that is a problem for most Steelers fans, but we can't say anything because we have unquestioned allegiance to Mike Tomlin because he's never given us a losing season.
Yeah. And that's, and when you have that stability in a franchise, I think that's huge. And, and that's what you kind of want. I mean, yes, you want Super Bowls, but you want that stability. You want that year in and year out. You know what you're going to expect. What you can expect, and you can expect to be in the playoffs. And the Eagles, and maybe part of the frustration has been, I don't know, when they've gotten in the playoffs, it's been like sneaking in the playoffs, or just kind of like the record hasn't been all that good.
Yeah, it's just the NFC East is, like you said, NFC East. They struggle. They beat each other up all year. Like they, even the games that they do win are their hard-fought games. There's nobody running away with the division ever. It's just always kind of like a crapshoot, and then it's like the 1 seed is maybe like 8 or 9 wins, and then the 2 seed is like 7 wins. It's like it's so close. The last couple of years with them struggling to kind of find themselves as a division, that like this is the first year where there could be 2 teams possibly making it out. The Cowboys and possibly the Eagles, or maybe Washington, depending on how they do for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So it's always kind of a toss up. And then there's the question, they don't have unquestioned leadership. So honestly, the leader in most cases would be your head coach and your quarterback. But those guys are both very unproven at this point. So like there's not that unquestioned leadership. The only person that has been a mainstay is Howie, and people don't trust him either. So it's like there's not a whole lot of trust in that organization as far as from the fan base to the organization. So they're always thinking that the grass is greener because they don't have that stability from that, that long-standing coach. Like if Andy Reid was still here, okay, of course, that'd be whoever he says the guy is, he's the guy. But it's just they're, like I said, they're a smarter fan base, and so they can kind of weed through the BS because they've seen it, 4 times, and they've got the T-shirt twice.
Do you think there's also, going back to kind of your, female kind of analogy here, when, you have an ex-girlfriend that, starts dating someone, and it's, someone good, and it's going really well. And you're like, oh, you don't really have, someone, that, or maybe you get someone you're like, I'm not really sure about, are Eagles fans maybe seeing that? Like they look at the Cowboys and see, well, they've got Dak. And we want to have our serious. Yeah.
So I'm with you. I understand your thought process.
Yeah.
But Dallas has done a really good job of drafting. They've done a phenomenal, as much as I hate to say it, they've done a great job for like talent acquisition. They've done the research. They went out and got guys. They finally, bet on Dak Prescott, and it's paying dividends for them. They finally, but the only one they missed on, I think, is Zeke. I think Zeke has been not as good as advertised. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. However, Pollard, Pollard may be the saving grace for these guys. They got a lot of receivers and stuff everywhere. They went in, short up their defense. They got some good defensive guys now. They're going to be a problem. But for what you're saying is the Eagles see that recipe, but the Eagles have done nothing like that way to like talent acquisition. They haven't done the same thing as far as talent acquisition. They've got some guys everybody's kind of scratched their head at, with the exception of last year going out and grabbing Devontae Smith, and then the Dillard pick was a really good pick because he was an Alabama product. These Alabama guys, they just are some of the best professionals going. They're already working in a professional setting. Mm-hmm. Nick Saban is probably hands down the best college coach ever. Mm-hmm. So I mean, you're kind of playing with house money. They can be good though. They can be good. I just think they need to give themselves time and stop looking at your ex-girlfriend. She's gonna continue to be happy because she found her person. Now you just got to find yours.
Yeah. Well, I could talk forever, all night of football. I definitely appreciate your time.
No
so everyone can find you where again?
So sorry, my voice is going weird. You guys can find me at DUI _of_ JD. And I tell you guys the name. It's a play on the DUI, but my alias is Drippy. So it's Drippy under the influence of JD.
Nice.
So, and then my other one is DDrippyNet, I _net, and I answer all those. So if you guys want to tweet me, or we constantly have people. If it's not me, you end up running into one of my castmates. They all answer. They tell you exactly who you're talking to as well.
Awesome. Well, we're definitely going to have to connect again.
For sure.
Definitely want to hear, once you get all the draft stuff, I think that'll be awesome to hear and learn, what you have on that. And, there's so much there. I see the Eagles, I see a good future. If they just kind of be patient, right?
Patience is key. It sucks. It's like we already had to deal with the process with the basketball team, so it's kind of hard to like get back on another process train. But I think it could be. I think it can be good. We'll see how it all shakes out. They're in control of their own destiny, so that's always the best place to be as a franchise or as a team, to be in control of your own destiny. If they play really well the next 4 games, they could be looking at a 10-win season, which is, better than most people had them slotted to be at the beginning of the season. If they end up as a 9-win season, because they got 3 winnable games coming up, that will also be, I think the only way people are down on this team is if they don't win any of the next 4 and they go out with a 6-11 season. Yeah, that would be tough to kind of like, stomach, I think, especially, seeing if Dallas does kind of get in the playoffs and make a long run too. For sure. And it's just like those games sting a little more when they're division games, and it's Cowboys, Eagles. It just stings a little more. And, people are going to have to get over it. Don't try to, don't worry about what your neighbor's doing, because, you still got a house to take care of. So I'm hoping that people kind of get that mindset, but it will suck if the Cowboys get in and make a run and the Eagles don't make it. It will suck.
Absolutely. Well, all great stuff. Once again, this has been NFL Outdated Cover 2 series on the Philadelphia Eagles. Thanks again, JD.
Thank you for having me.